Rocks. They make an excellent addition to any planted tank, as far as I'm concerned. But going to the fish store, you can really break the bank looking for some cool rocks. So in today's video, I'm going to cover some alternative methods, ways that you can collect rocks for free or buy them a lot cheaper. All right, so why are we adding rocks to our fish tanks in the first place? Well, there's three main reasons. First of all, the aesthetics. Who doesn't love the way some nice rocks look in a fish tank? You know, they really bring that natural vibe to your tank. But also, they can provide a lot of good shelter and habitat for your fish. And then the last thing, which is both a pro and a con, is that rocks can alter the water parameters. Now, that's not always the case. I'll talk about this in more detail down the road here. So, where can you go to collect rocks? Well, obviously, rocks are everywhere. All you got to do is stick your head outside. Sometimes I'll collect rocks from my backyard. Like, there's a bunch of river stones that the previous homeowners used in landscaping. So, another great place to look for stones is by rivers and creeks. There are lots of granite river pebbles there. They're really smooth, rounded out. Most of these stones are going to be inert, not going to affect your water quality. I've collected stones from mountains, like when I'm hiking, little bits of granite. There's some really cool pink chunks that you can find out there that you're not able to really find in stores. Where this method starts to become a little bit of a hassle is when you're setting up a big tank. You know, I'm not going to climb a mountain and carry down 100 pounds of stone for my 125 gallon. Um, so in these cases, I like to go to the landscaping store. Landscaping stores have tons and tons of cool stone. Let's take a little visit. You're here at the landscaping store. Take a look around. Bunch of river rocks of varying sizes. This stone, this is super cool. Some black granite chip, all this stuff, and then there's some sand over here. These are like things, the exact same things you'd see at the fish store, except they'd be charging like 20-30 times as much. Crazy. A whole new row. There's some massive river stones. That'd be a lot easier than going out and collecting them yourself. A bunch of different kinds of river stones. My favorite, the Mexican beach pebbles. So many different kinds, different sizes. Lots of them have texture. This guy here, they're not like normal river stones. Here's a nice big old pile of sandstone. Really cool. This is actually what I'm going to be getting for an African cichlid tank today. I'm going to go ahead and load up and head on home. All right, so I just got home from the landscaping store. This is 325 pounds of sandstone, and I got it for about 16 bucks. Compared to my local big box store, looking at some granite here for 45 bucks for 15 pounds, that is 75 times more expensive than that massive pile of stones. And then over here, the Dragonstone is 45 bucks for 9 pounds. That's 100 times more expensive than that sandstone pile I got from the landscaping store. All this stuff here is crazy, crazy expensive. You can save so much money by collecting your own or going to the landscaping store. This lava rock here, this is exactly the kind of stone that they had in one of the mega piles at the landscaping store. How do you know what stones are safe to collect for your fish tank? There is no one rule for collecting stones. Unfortunately, you do need to learn a little bit about identifying different types of rocks, but I can help you out with some general guidelines that'll at least get you in the right direction. So generally some safe stones to collect would be river stone, lava rock, and granite. Those three are inert. That means they're not going to alter your water chemistry at all. So when it comes to river stones, they can actually be a bunch of different types of rock, but by and large, at least where I live, the river stones are going to be made of granite. When you're collecting river stones, they're generally safe because they've been underwater such a long time. They've seeped out a lot of their minerals, and you can tell that they've been underwater a long time if they're rounded out. If you're collecting stones from the river that have sharp edges on them, then chances are they haven't been underwater that long and they may still be seeping a lot of minerals out. Granite is a very, very diverse stone. You can see pink, brown, white, almost like black colors, so many different types of granite, and it is everywhere out there. So that's a safe stone to use. Now, some stones that you might want to use with caution are like flaky stones, for example, things that are kind of layered together. If it starts to crumble when you pick it up and shake it around like that, chances are it's going to crumble under the tank. Maybe not right away, but eventually with time it will. Some other stones to avoid would be stones that have like metal deposits in them. Metal inside the stone you've collected, that could rust, and that's going to lead to problems down the road. Rocks with really sharp points might be ones that you want to avoid too, because when fish rub up against them, especially in a tank, your fish is going to be everywhere in there. When they rub up on those rocks, there's potential for them to cut themselves, impale their eyes, that sort of stuff. And I know a lot of people are like, well, fish live with these sorts of objects in the wild. I think the main difference in the tank is it's such a confined space. You really want them to be able to access the whole tank because that's their whole world. So make sure that you don't put really sharp stones in there. And then the last one to use with caution is limestone. Limestone will leach minerals into the water, magnesium and calcium. This will raise your pH, your GH, and your KH. So if you live somewhere with hard tap water, then you probably wouldn't want to add that to your tank. If you live somewhere with soft tap water, like I do, and you want to add minerals to the water, then limestone is a really great way to go about it. It's a great alternative to using crushed coral. Crushed coral is taxing on the environment, right? Coral takes a long time to grow, and then depending on how it's harvested, sometimes it's collected from living corals. They're basically destroyed just to get that bone underneath them. So go with limestone. It's also way, way, way cheaper. You can get a bucket of limestone at your landscaping store for just a few bucks. So there is actually a test that you can do to see how your stone will act underwater. Is it going to be leaching any minerals or nutrients? So let's check this out. I have a piece of limestone here and then a piece of Mexican beach pebble. So the best way to test it is to just take a metal or some other sharp object and kind of give it a little scratch and then pour some vinegar on it. If it starts to fizz up, then we know we got something that's going to be altering the water parameters. If it doesn't fizz up, then chances are it's safe. It's not a guarantee, but it's a pretty good chance. All right, so here we go. We got the limestone. Scratch it up there. And let's grab some vinegar. Don't need to go out with your vinegar. This is just some private selection. Oh, and there we go. You can see along the bottom, it is fizzing up right around there. Oh yeah, look at that. And that's probably a lot of the residue that when I poured in the vinegar, it washed down to the bottom and it's reacting. Let's see what happens when I do it on a stone that I am pretty sure is inert. At least hopefully, because I'm using it in a bunch of tanks right now. All right, Mexican beach pebble. And that's a lot harder to scratch, which means it's denser, compact. That is a good indicator that it's not going to want to release whatever is inside there. It's keeping it to itself, but we do have some little scratches there. Pour some vinegar on it and see what happens. Nothing's happening, even down bottom where vinegar is pooled up. Great, it's inert. Preparation is something that a lot of people get overly concerned with, in my opinion. I don't do all that much to prepare my stones. Rinse them off, scrub them down. That's pretty much it. If you're worried that there's potential for some sort of parasite or harmful fungus, bacteria from the stone to travel into your tank, you can soak them in diluted bleach water. Maybe do that for a few hours and then fill up the bucket with really, really hot tap water, as hot as your faucet will go, and then slosh it around, drain it. Do that a few times to make sure that that bleach is completely gone and out of there. I would really advise against boiling or baking your stones. If you have a stone that's somewhat porous, it can retain that moisture. And then when you boil it or bake it, that water heats up inside, starts moving around, causes the stone to freak out, and sometimes they can explode. So there really shouldn't be all too many situations where you're collecting stones that require boiling. I can't imagine that collecting some stones from the forest is going to result in transport of a parasite or bacteria that's able to survive outside and underwater and affect your fish. It just doesn't really seem likely to me. What's more likely is that you'll have some organic debris in there, some buildup, and this is really only possible in stones with lots of porous areas and nooks and crannies, cracks where organic things can grow and fit inside. But for river stones and chunks of granite, most of the things that we're finding out there, you're not going to have those nooks and crannies, that texture. That's the kind of stuff that you got to go to the fish store for. So, um, for the most part, don't overthink it. Just clean it off. There's stones out where fish live. They're not they don't need to be like super super sterilized or anything. So just kind of use your common sense and judgment. And so then there's all sorts of other different types of stones at the fish store. Then if you're like a like high tech aquascaper, or you're really into hardscapes, then this might be a situation where you want to go to the fish store to buy some. But if you're like me and you're stocking a 6 foot long tank with stone, not happening. I'm definitely buying it from the landscape store. So, scaling stones. When you buy stones from your landscaping store, chances are they're only going to have really big chunks. So, I like to find smaller stones to complement the bigger ones because it looks really natural. So, I found a bunch of this Mexican beach pebble at my landscaping store. It's way cool. I love this stuff. But they didn't have any small ones to complement it. And when I say complement it, I mean to scale up or down. Like, I got these big stones in the tank, and I want to find some slightly smaller ones, some medium ones, some really small ones, and then some almost minuscule ones to create a sense of like real natural vibe. You never just see one size stone in nature. You see the big ones surrounded by a whole bunch of other different sizes. So it looks more natural when you're able to replicate that same sort of variable scale in your tank. So something like this beach pebble I was just talking about, I was able to hop online on Amazon and find different scales of beach pebbles. So another place that I like to go for scalable stones is down by the creek. Hop on my bike, take the trail all the way down, and look at this old floodplain where there's a bunch of river pebbles, and then I can find some stuff to kind of scale up if I'm using, like larger river stones that I've purchased from the landscaping store. All right, one last thing to talk about is placement in your tank. You can put these stones anywhere you want, it's your tank. But the one thing that you really need to be careful of is if you're using a big, heavy stone that has protrusions to them, parts that stick out. Think about that little point that's sticking out. If you rest that stone on the glass, that little point, that's where all the weight is going to be pointed. Put too much pressure on a little point and result in the glass cracking. It's not that the glass isn't able to hold that weight, it's just not able to hold that super focused weight in one little point. So with that, you can put some styrofoam down or some other sort of smoother surface. Some egg crate's another good option, or light diffuser, whatever you want to call it. But those two things are going to really help to distribute the weight. That way you don't have a major pressure point. So tempered glass, bottom of the aquarium, is usually able to hold tons and tons and tons of weight. Just make sure you distribute it properly. Hey, thanks so much for watching all the way to the end of the video. Let me know, what are you doing to collect cheap stone? What do you do to prepare it? Be curious what everyone else out there is doing. Appreciate it. Make sure you hit that like, subscribe, all that stuff. Support my channel if you found today's info useful, or if you enjoyed it. I really appreciate it. Until next time, see ya.